Welcome back to Mama's Talk Relationships. I'm Lisa Miller.
And I'm Alessandra Martinet.
Are you ready to dive into another episode about love, loss, and everything in between after divorce?
I am so ready.
What are we going to talk about today?
Today, we are going to talk about the year post divorce, your first year.
Year
But
one.
before we, s- yeah, year one. But before we start, we have a couple of exciting things to share with you guys. Lisa, why don't you go first?
I would love to. Thank you. So, if you guys are loving our content, if you're wanting to dive deeper in your healing journey, wanting more support, guidance, advice, I'm your girl. I have a beautiful one on one program container for you. Reach out to me via Instagram. You can find me at lisamiller.coach. Send me a DM, schedule a free clarity call, and let's see if we're a good fit to work together. What do you got?
Well, I am going to be partnering with Flashback, and I am going to be going on a solo trip and I'm inviting all of my followers to come along. It is going to be so amazing, and more information will come shortly. And you'll find it at my link in bio on Mama's Guide to Divorce. But before we dive into
Amazing.
today, I want you guys to please consider leaving us a review and subscribing wherever you listen to us.
Yes,
So,
please. We would be so honored and so grateful if you did that.
yes. So let's dive in.
Let's
Where do we
go.
start?
Oh gosh. I mean, the first year, let's not sugarcoat it. Let's just be really raw and honest. It's fucking hard and it sucks.
Oh my gosh, well, you're still grieving the loss of your marriage, and
Oh, you're so heartbroken. And some people stay heartbroken for years. There's no timeline on heartbreak, but definitely that first year you're not just grieving the loss of your marriage, you're grieving the loss of the future you thought you were going to have. And here you are trying to figure out who you are post divorce, not as a wife anymore.
not only that, you feel, like, really lonely.
So
When the
lonely.
first time when my kids went away for vacation with their dad, and they were gone a week, it was really hard.
I mean, listen, I have 3 kids, right? So that first even just that first weekend, the first weekend that they went to spend at their dad, whoa, the silence was deafening. It broke my heart into, like, a million pieces. I started to question everything. Was this the right decision? Should we have tried harder? Maybe we can try this again. I mean, all the thoughts went through my head. And sitting in my house, I had a big house at the time. Sitting in my big house all by myself was so lonely and scary and just really blew up my whole world.
Yeah, and it's like, that's when you have to start working on yourself and rediscovering who you are as a
Yeah,
woman and not just as a mom.
and not just as a wife.
Because when you're married, you fall into it, right? And it's normal,
You
but you have to
forget who you
develop
are.
yeah, but you have to develop your own identity again.
Yeah. And how did you start to do that?
Well, I have to admit, I started to make new friends that had gone through it or going through it, and I would go out with them. I took tennis lessons, I would read. I tried to find different activities to keep me busy all the time.
Yeah. So what you're saying is find new experiences. Give
Mhm.
yourself the gift of new experiences, possibly new friends. And one of the hardest lessons we learn during divorce is we lose friends. I don't know anyone who doesn't lose friends. People pick sides. It's part of the process. It's another heartbreak of the process. Whether you did anything in the to end the marriage or not, there are people that are closer to your ex, and there are people that are closer to you, and some people can stay friends with both, and some can't.
And what
So
about sorry, but what about people that don't really want you around because now you're the single person?
oh, that's so heartbreaking.
Do you know what
I
I
I
mean?
I do know what you mean. I used to say people thought they'd catch getting divorced. I'm like, "You can't catch getting divorced. Like, that's not gonna happen." But what it is it's the reality of if this happened to you, it can happen to me, and I don't want anything to do with that. And so they
Or
run from you.
yeah, or she might take my husband type of thing.
Scarcity. But
Yeah,
I look at that now as such a blessing because those aren't my people. And it was a cleaning house of people that I don't want in my life. I want really amazingly supportive people because when I'm down in the dirt, if you can't reach out your hand and be like, I'm here, I got you, you're not my
they were never your
friend.
friend. They were
No.
never your friend to begin with.
So it's okay, like, as heartbreaking and as it is, it's okay that these people exited my life, and I have people like that who I run into in the neighborhood sometimes. I live in a small town, and I'm like, "Hey," I'm very friendly with them, but I'm so glad they're not my good friend anymore.
Yeah, because they showed you their true colors.
Yeah, but that's
But
part of the first year of figuring out who you are, you're also figuring out who your friends are.
well, let's also talk about because for me, it's what I experienced losing your best friend.
I lost my best friend too, and what we're talking about is our husbands. I grew up with my husband in the sense that we started dating when I was 21, and it ended when I was 40.
I was 22. So it's the same thing. You went to them for everything.
Everything. If I was having a good day, if I was having a bad day, if I was thinking, "I don't know what to do about this," like, he was my first call. So all of a sudden to question, "Should I call him? Should I not call him? Like, is that right? Is that wrong?" I was lost.
That was like one of the hardest parts for me as well because we were really close. And when we were
Mhm.
going through the divorce, he acknowledged, like, I'm losing my best friend. So it's
Yeah.
not just us, they feel the same way as well.
Absolutely. Whether you're the one who wanted the divorce or not, it's still a loss. Everyone's experiencing this loss, but in a different way because we all experience pain and loss in a different way and grief. So just know if you're feeling that, you're not alone. It's heartbreaking. Even if your ex, if there was infidelity, it's still a loss. It's still painful. It's still oh my gosh, like you were my person for however long they were your person and they're not your person anymore,
Yeah,
and
it's soul
that
crushing.
soul crushing, and that's part of the first year, and then
And
there's
there's so
the
many other
go go ahead.
sorry, there's so many other firsts, and one that I can vividly remember is, like, the first Mother's Day.
And you're just you and your kids.
Just you and your kids, and what do you do? Because dad's not there to make it Mother's Day.
Special, right? I mean, my kids were young, so there was no gifts, there was no cards, it was just like, "Oh, hey, happy Mother's Day," and we went to brunch with my mom and dad and brother. But it wasn't like I wasn't being celebrated as a mom for my kids. They didn't think about they do now, but now they're older. So I just wanna
Mhm.
clear up that that we're just talking about the first one, and I had young kids. But at the time, oof, you want it to be a special day. That goes for any holiday. That
Mhm.
first year, all the first holidays. I mean, let's talk about it. There's the Thanksgiving that all of a sudden, maybe you're with your kids, maybe you're not. That first holiday, you're not with your kids.
And
Woo!
you have to find your own groove. But
Yes.
that's when you know, like, who your really good friends are,
Mhm.
and they don't leave you out to dry.
Yeah.
I another first for me was, like, when I moved into my first apartment post-divorce, and, like, the first few meals, we just sat there together. We had dinner together with dad every single night,
And all of a sudden you didn't.
and then we didn't, and it was just
Mhm.
the 3 of us.
Yeah. And you're like, "Well, it's all these little things that, like, are gonna change, but when they actually change and it actually happens, it takes on a whole new meaning." And to sit
Mhm.
with that and to grieve it and to feel it hurts. That's why Alessandra and I talk about all the time, like, your support system during this time, during that and it goes way beyond the divorce is over, it's final. If you're still in it during that first year, you need these people more than ever.
Absolutely.
I mean, the only way
Absolutely.
through is to feel it all and to have a support system to lift you up because in those moments, it's really, really hard.
It's really hard, and I am such a believer in you choose the path you go on, and for some people, the path isn't as easy, but I just remember thinking sports games, right? How do we manage that the first year? A lot of parents, they don't sit together.
I still don't sit next to my ex.
Fortunately, I do. Like, we sit together a lot of the games, and
And
we
we're
sit
not
there
on
and
bad
talk,
terms. I want to be very clear on that. Like my ex and I are not on bad terms, but we don't sit together.
and that's okay, but that was another thing that I'm like, "How is this gonna work?" And we just sat together.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's a choice. So usually my ex is usually, out in the outfield. When my other son had basketball games, he would sit at the very top, and I can't really see, so I can't sit at
Mhm,
the very top. So, so we just wouldn't sit together. And I'll be honest, like sometimes I would look around and be like, "Oh, I'm bummed, like we're not all together." And
mhm.
could we have changed that? Can't we can still change it. My kids still play sports. We could, but that's just where we're at, and that's okay. And you get used to whatever that ends up being. I remember so clearly, like, very in the beginning days of him and I not being together, the game's over, and my kids are like, "Who do we walk with?" And it's this, like,
Mhm.
awkward moment of, like, "Do I go with you? Do I'm going home with dad, but I'm not gonna see you." And we actually walked out together, but it was like then I got in my car alone, and I just started
And it
crying.
was I know, it's hard.
Mhm. It is hard. And we're not telling you guys all this to be doom and gloom. We're just telling you so you know you're not alone. That you know this is
And we're
normal.
keeping it real.
Yeah.
Keeping it real.
But there's also some fun first. So let's tap into those. I mean, let's tap into the first time you go out with your friends and you're like in a good place. You're no longer like in this like crazy doom and gloom cloud and you're like, all right, like I want to go out and see if there's any good men out there.
Or when you go out and you're 40 and you act like you're 20.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, come on. And then you're like, "You know what? This isn't so bad. I'm having a great time.
Yeah, and then you go out and all these guys are, like, hitting on you and buying you drinks, and you're like, "I still got it."
Mama still got it."
Mama's got her groove back.
Oh gosh.
And then there's the first date. Let's talk about the first date. Oh, we.
Oh, you go on the first date, and for me, it was, "Is this gonna be my next ex-husband?" Sorry, that was a slip.
That's
"Is this
amazing.
good?" Sorry to my listeners, I'm not that negative, but, "Is this gonna be my next husband?"
Yeah,
You
I
know,
I actually
that's
was
how you think.
yeah, I was terrified to go on my first date. I was like, "Oh, I hadn't been on a date in so long. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to wear." And I went and I had a few drinks and it just flowed and it was fine and it was kind of fun. I was like, "Oh, like this is kind of interesting."
I don't know, my first date was a little interesting to me. But like I said, I was thinking, "Is this person gonna be my next husband?"
Yeah,
That's the mindset I had.
you went a little extreme. You were like,
Yeah,
"Let's
because
dive in."
let's dive in. And people
Yeah.
can feel that, by the way, but that's where my mindset was at. I didn't wanna be single.
Yeah, you were terrified of being single. So you're like, "Let me just latch on to the first person that has a heartbeat. Let's just do that." I was more just I was more curious. I was like, "Oh, like a date? I haven't done one of these in a really long time. What's that gonna be like?" And then it was fun. I was like, "Oh, like maybe I'll go out with him again."
Yeah, completely terrified.
I was terrified of being alone as well. I had never been alone, but I didn't go into dating looking for my next husband. That wasn't my mindset. My mindset was more like, "Let me dip my toe in the water, see if this was any good." And this is you know what I did? I went on the apps because that's, like, what everyone tells you to do. Go on the apps, go on the apps, go on the apps. So I went on the apps, and I went out with a guy who I for sure thought I would never like because he was not my type at all,
Mhm.
and that made it a little easier. I was like, okay, like I'm not really interested in him. I'm more just interested in knowing what it's like to go on a date and feeling what that's like to kind of get my confidence up. And it worked. I had a really nice time. We had a nice conversation. I was like, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this.
Let
And
me ask
so
you something. Did you compare him to your ex at
all the
all?
time, all the time.
Another thing, did you find that when you started dating that you were looking for someone that was similar to your ex or opposite of your ex? Because I was looking for the complete opposite in every way.
Yeah, I ended up dating someone the complete opposite. I think I was like, I don't want to do that again. you know, I, I don't want to like, and not anything against my ex. He's a lovely human being, but that didn't work out for me. So I must not need that. I need something different. That was what I was thinking at the time. In reality, I probably needed a little what he brought to the table, a little what my ex-boyfriend brought to the table. I like, there's not really a perfect person out there. And it's not fair to say, oh, like I need the exact opposite. It's more just like really I think where I went wrong, if I'm being really transparent and honest, is that
Mhm.
I think I didn't take the time to really pause and like learn my love lessons. I just kind of was like, "Ugh, like, I'm heartbroken. I wanna fill that void. How can I do that
That's
the easiest
exactly
and
it.
fastest way possible?"
That's exactly it. But let me ask you something else because I thought about this. What about the first time you find out your ex is with someone or the first time you see that other someone? That's hard too.
I haven't really experienced that. I
Oh, I
mm,
experienced it.
you experienced it before you were divorced, but I, my ex just recently, I heard we don't talk like that, so I'm sure he has dated, I just don't know about it.
Mhm.
I just recently heard he was dating someone, and I was actually genuinely happy for him, but this is 8 years later. So, I think if I heard about it day 1, it woulda driven me crazy. It woulda
Oh,
hurt like a
absolutely.
knife going
And
through my heart.
I can think that anyone listening to this who is going through it right now, if they were to meet or hear about it, it would be soul crushing.
Yeah, and one of the fears that people have is they're gonna give everything to that new person that they didn't give to me. They're gonna show
They're
up in
not
the way I wanted to.
they're not changing overnight.
Mm-mm, and if they don't do the work, they're not changing ever.
No, you absolutely always have to do the work. There's no
Mhm,
way around it.
yeah. So I mean, that's a big part of it, but yeah, if that happens in the first year on top of everything else, that would be really, really hard to handle.
Yeah, I mean, so the first year, like just to summarize for everyone, it's not easy. You go through a
Not
lot of
easy.
firsts, like holidays, losing friends, the sports, and dating. But in the end, what do we always say?
There's a
You
rainbow after the storm.
you will get through it and it will be absolutely amazing and beautiful.
Absolutely. And just before we hop off, because I know we're about to hop off here, just maybe like, what's your number one advice for someone who's in that first year to help them get through the storm?
It's going to be hard, but don't be so tough on yourself. It's okay to have moments of weakness, but also seek out help when you need it. You don't have to be badass right out of the gate and just work on yourself for yourself because ultimately you will be a better mom and
Hmm.
person for that.
Yeah, you will thrive through this if you have the right mindset. If you
Mhm.
here's the thing, the way we think affects the way we feel, affects our whole energy. So if we are
Mhm.
thinking doom and gloom, we're gonna feel doom and gloom.
Yep.
So get the tools you need, and there's a million of them, right? That's part of the wonderful work of coaching. We have so many tools in our toolkit to help you through this to change your mindset so that you feel your best. And when you feel your best, you then become an advocate for yourself. You then stop fearing all the unknowns and all the scary things. and you start being really confident in yourself, and that is a game changer, and that will change your first year of divorce so fast. You will collapse time and feel better
Mhm.
faster, and that is the name of the game. And I want to
Eh,
end on that note. You can say something. I'm
okay.
done. You say something.
No, and I just think I just wanted to add to that, that mindset is absolutely key, and not think, "Why did this happen to me?" But, "What am I gonna learn from this, and how am I gonna become better from this?"
Everything's happening for you. Ch- Get into that mindset. That will change your
It's
life.
happening for you.
Mhm.
All right, mamas, we're nearing the end of another episode of Mamas Talk Relationships. As always, we want to thank you for joining us on this journey. We'll be back next week with another insightful, informative, and hopefully entertaining episode on navigating dating and relationships after divorce.